Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Roots2Routes collaboration podcast with South Asian Heritage Month. Today is a really cool guest because she is a music producer and manager who's helping raise the profile, not just of people in the music industry, but the creative industry as a whole. And I'll let her explain exactly what that means. By the end of this conversation, you're going to feel more inspired and proud to be South Asian if you're from that background, or you'll understand it better. And overall, you'll find out how cool it is to combine music and the South Asian identity. So, Trina.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I actually want to jump right in to get your perspective on the background that you have and how that may have led you to the way that your path unfolded. So we spoke earlier and you said that I grew up and I didn't look like a Smith. I also didn't look like an Indian either. And I was stuck in between. What did you mean by this?
So growing up, just give you my background. My dad's English. My surname's Smith. It's my maiden name. And my mum is Sri Lankan, but was born in Malaysia. And growing up, I just thought of her as Malaysian. I don't know at what point it sunk into me that her heritage was Sri Lankan, even though my cousins, who I spent a lot of time with, who are fully Sri Lankan but British born, were always going to Sri Lanka. And I never questioned, why are they going there? Like, your mum's from Malaysia. And it was more when I went... Well, as a child growing up in the 80s, if I went into an establishment that didn't know me or my parents, for example, in the school holidays, I'd be put into like a summer school, like summer camp thing. And they'd do a register and they'd be like, Trina Smith. And I'd put my hand up and they'll just go, oh, you don't look like a Smith. Yeah. And I'm thinking, what does a Smith look like? I mean, it's who I am. Even when I got married, I didn't change my name. I'm Smith. That's who I am through and through. Maybe, it's little things like that that made me want to keep that Smith surname. But yeah, that's kind of, it's only, in the last maybe 10 years or so that I've become more aware of the Sri Lankan roots. And then obviously passing that on to my children as well, who look more white than I do, has been a challenge too.
Yeah, there's this term called identity invalidation. I think it coins something that applies a lot to people from, even in my case where I'm British Asian. So my split is still my identity and heritage is still Asian, but I grew up in the British culture. Whereas you have an added complexity where you have, one part of your heritage from one side and one from the other. And this identity invalidation is when people around you challenge your view of your identity because of a certain appearance or assumption they have about you. Did you find that in your early years that the way you, I guess, expressed yourself, especially looking back and how you know yourself to be now, do you find that there was that restriction in how you brought yourself out?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Because to add to it, my dad was married before he married my mum. So I've got an older brother and sister who are white, ginger, blue eyes. Yeah. And they're just my brother and sister. There's no half about it. There's not. So until it was made an issue or mentioned, I didn't know any different. So I was just me, But also I was very lucky to be brought up in a very a diverse area. I grew up in Lewisham from the ends, where it wasn't predominantly white. But even then I didn't notice that because it was just all I knew. So I don't know how much of it shaped me getting to where I am, but there definitely... If I really unpacked it, which I probably should do at some point, there must have been things that made me feel like I couldn't. And maybe it did come down to just not seeing anyone that looked like me on the TV or having an awareness of them in music. I can't even think about I can't recall the first Asian pop star that I would have, like, as a younger child or a teenager. I can't even think it because
wasn't really there.
I was a Take That fan. So, I was obsessed with Take That, but I was obsessed with music and I can't think of...
Wasn't there a group in the 70s called like Indian Rock Band?
Possibly.
Yeah. That was just the first I'd heard of how they brought like Western music with traditional Indian instruments. But again, that's...
Even the Beatles did it.
Yeah, exactly.
The Beatles, like one of the biggest bands in the world.
In a very I there's this thing of bringing the traditional instruments out there, but I think the story behind it, and you'll be able to say more on this, is also something that needs to be brought to the surface. So I think it's good if you bring like a harmonium or the sitar into the limelight, and say that, oh, this has come from Eastern musical traditions. But I think at least in the 70s, it didn't, in a rock band, it didn't accompany with the story of like, what does this represent? What does this sound mean? What was it used for?
Yeah.
And I think that's a challenge that, again, you tell me, like, I would love to get your perspective.
Well,
on
I embarrassingly don't really know that much about Asian music on the whole, because, well, it's not that I'm not interested in it. I just went, ever since I've been working in this industry until very recently, and I will talk about my artist Saffron in a moment. Everything that I did was very Western. All of the music that I've supported or, helped put out and championed, and looking back, I don't know that was a conscious decision. It was just what fell in my lap at the time, or actually, in an age where music isn't really about music anymore, if I heard music that I liked, wanting to support that. But now, especially over the last year, I definitely have more of an awareness of looking for those different sounds. It's very important to me that, I have a broad spectrum of the people that I work with. But some of my favourite things to do are working with real instruments, people who play real instruments. And if I can do more work with people who are playing like instruments from around the globe, then I think if anything I'm going to take away from this South Asian Heritage Month is to go away and actually put a lot more time and effort into learning more about that side of the music industry and my heritage.
Yeah, it's fascinating. There's Pew Research, they do tons of these studies, and it says that it takes people until their 20s or 30s to really try and discover their culture, which kind of makes sense, because when you're young, you kind of do what your parents tell you, and you either do it or you don't, right?
Yep.
But you're just doing it, unless you're very inquisitive, off the back of what they've told you to do or not to do. Then you go through certain years of your life, adolescence, but it tends to be in the 20s and 30s where people discover it, which seems to align with yours. Also, it's in trying to tap into a culture which you might have previously, I don't want to say ignored, but just pushed to the side. It normally takes like a triggering event. So it could be like parenthood, or a real low, or meeting a certain different stage of your life. Was there that triggering? And I don't mean triggering in like...
No, there was an awakening.
Yeah, awakening.
Yes, there was. There was this, I don't know how old my children were. I think my son must have been, well, my daughter could talk. So she must have been about 4. So my son would have been about 6. And we've always talked to my son about, the heritage, our heritage. And, I've got family who completely mixed, and, he's never not been in a situation where he's had to question where he's from, because we were just firstborn, maybe, I don't know. We talked very openly about it. Maybe we didn't do that with the secondborn. Now, my daughter is a lot lighter skinned, green eyes, so she does look slightly different to my son. She looks very different to me. She certainly looks very different to my mum, who is her grandmother. Right. And we were in the car and we were just driving back, and my son and I were talking about something to do with family and race and, where we're from. And she just suddenly went, "What do you mean I'm mixed race?" And I got a little bit annoyed, and I was like, "Don't be silly.
Yeah.
Like, look at me. I'm not white. Look at your nana. She's definitely not." She's like, "Yeah, but no one told me." And I had to stop and go, "Do you know what? No one ever did tell her."
Yeah.
So she has done what I did growing up, not knowing any different, and just gone about her life as who she is. And that was maybe her "you don't look like a Smith" moment when we were talking about it. And I had to really check myself then and go, "Do you know what? This is really important. I need to pick up on this. I need my children to understand where their heritage comes from." And, I am very Western. I was born here. My dad's white. It's, this is, my culture is here, but there's a huge part of me that I don't understand because I haven't taken the time to, And then there was probably about 9 years ago, I think I I'd got some sort of autoimmune disease that meant I started to get vitiligo.
Mm.
And I was getting these white patches on my face, and all I kept thinking was, I can't be white. Like, that's part of my identity. What happens if I lose all my pigment? Like, how?
Right.
So there were two kind of, actually, they must have both been around the same time. Luckily, you know, I managed to get rid of the autoimmune disease, but I think those were two very big things that was like, oh my God, this is my identity. I've not passed it on to my children well enough. And also, like, I only know how to be brown.
Yeah. I want to bring up probably another side of this story that doesn't get talked about as much. So obviously, you know, part and parcel of talking about mixed identity backgrounds is the challenges that get faced of probably being not fully included in either communities. But going to your point of, you know, introducing your daughter to it, what is something beautiful about being from this in-between culture that probably doesn't get talked about?
Oh, what is something that's beautiful about it? I mean, I'm very lucky that I have two very different cultures that I've been brought up in. But because I was brought up in them, I didn't question it. It's just what my life was. But, you know, from going to my auntie's house and them making hoppers and, you know, the most incredible, my mouth's watering just thinking about that food. Going to my brother and sisters who I didn't live with, and just enjoying a very Western style of Christmas and things like that. I was very lucky to be brought up in two different cultures. I just wish I'd had more of an awareness that I was just in it.
Yeah, that is this is a slightly different take, but the way I can relate to it is I grew up here, but then I spent time living abroad. So I lived in China, which is a very different cultural a way of living. And even before that, I think there were, and I've brought this up before, there's certain trips that I've done. I visited people in Italy, but then especially living in somewhere like China where all of their eating habits are different and even their relationship building habits. So I remember questioning where I was staying, they had congee, which is, it's like a rice porridge and they put spices in it. And I remember speaking to one of the Chinese ladies and I said, this is so strange that you have rice porridge in the morning. And she said, what do you have? And I was like, well, oat porridge makes sense with like honey, nuts, berries. And she thought that was weird. And I was like, yeah, it just feels like a normal thing. And she goes, you do realize that there's 1.2 billion people in the world who are going to disagree with you. So the whole point of bringing that up is that when I was faced with another culture, I realized that my way of living is not the only normal way and that everything else is different. It's more that I have a way of living, but there's people, like there's a lot more people in the world who live in a different way. And I think the kind of to the point you're saying that you had this culture and that way of living, and then you had the Western side of the way traditions are celebrated, and you just get to see that there isn't one normal.
No, it's just everything was normal. Like my mum, she gets with her family and they're eating an amazing curry and grilled mackerel and stuff, and they eat with their hands.
Yeah.
But then, you know, the Western side of my family would probably look at that and go, can you pick up a knife and fork? People just got to do them, right? You know? And that's the thing. I think that's maybe why I've got a bit more of a laid back approach to stuff, because people just do what they do, right?
Yeah.
And if it's labeled under culture, brilliant. You know, we've got a lot to learn from every culture.
True. So let's talk about music. So it's really interesting the point that you made about when you were younger, not having anyone that you can think of that you could look up to. And I think this is a huge part of South Asian identity and going into creative industries, especially over the last decade, where people like yourself who are doing it probably had to break barriers because the whole underrepresentation at people at like role models wasn't there. How did you even get into that space? But how did you even internally form that idea that this is something I could form a career out of, and then deal with expectations from others around you?
Yeah, I kind of fell into it. I didn't mean to be in music, I think, but maybe that's because it never crossed my mind that I could. I always wanted to be in arts and entertainment.
Right.
And I kind of fell into this back in like 2015 when my son had to be sort of settled into school, and he needed like 3 weeks to do it, which is crazy. But I think where I was working at the time, I either didn't have the time that I could take off, or that they weren't happy with me taking that time off. So I left and I started my own business, a virtual PA business. And I started working with a music producer who quite soon after I realised, well, he admitted he was being extorted and exploited by his label and his management. And stupidly, I said, well, I can manage you and I won't do that. Like, you know, and here I am 8 years later, still doing it. And at the time I didn't, you know, maybe I had imposter syndrome. Maybe I was just doing it. I was just in it. I think maybe I need to learn to take a step outside and actually look at what's going on around. But when I'm in it, I didn't notice barriers to me per se. I'm sure they were there, but it's only the more my career's developed and, you know, things that I'm doing now, like being on the Association for Electronic Music Board, being part of the MMF, you know, looking at all the campaigns that are going on for rights across all the different diverse sectors of people who work in this industry, I realise those barriers are very much still there.
Yeah.
You know, it starts from the top, and the top hasn't changed in however many years. It's still run by the same type of person. And until things up there start changing, we're all going to keep fighting, but it's tough.
And when you say we, who do you mean by you?
I mean the underrepresented groups within the industry, the women in music who are still paid significantly less than the men, and, you know, let's be honest, at the top of most of the establishments within music that have control over the industry, it's run by straight white men.
And this is where I think this is the crux of something I really wanted to dive into, which is, what does genuine representation in music look like?
This is, I could talk for hours on this. Okay, I have a real issue with a lot of things that go on in music separate to the straight white men at the top. I have this issue with, and yeah, I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but there is an element of talent still in this industry, and there are a number of people who in this industry want something for nothing. It's very much of an entitlement culture, and especially if you are from an underrepresented group, if you're not seen as supporting them, and by support means giving them your time for free, giving them studio time for free, your producers working for free, things like that, you are then deemed not an ally of whether, you know, it's LGBTQ, trans, sexism, racism, you know, even go as far as, you know, being a single parent in this industry is a lot tougher than people who don't have children, and things like that. And there's this real bullying culture, even on that extreme, that you can be as supportive as you want, but if you don't give them something for free, you are not an ally. And that really upsets me, because you have to have talent. And that the reason that you're not getting those things for free isn't because you're a woman, or because, you know, you're, I don't know, trans, or wherever you sit. It's because you don't have the talent. And there still has to be an element of this industry where you have to have the talent.
Do you know Rick Beato?
No.
Okay, big in the music scene, and I heard something that he was saying recently about now a lot of music, because of everything that's changed with the technology and making things a bit more homogenized, because people are using the same instruments, but also there's music producers come with this lens of the way they make music now. They factor in something like, is it TikTokable?
Yeah.
And you know, that development, do you see that, I guess, like diluting down or does it make it more important, like the front running musician, or is it just diluting the industry as a whole, that now talent is also baking in what is going to go viral on social media?
Yeah, I think there's two things here. I think what's diluted the industry the most is DSPs, because so, you know, your Spotify's and iTunes and things like that, because anyone can release music now.
Yeah.
It's something, and this might be wrong, like last year it was 86,000 tracks per day were uploaded. Actually, the year before, I think last year it was 130,000 per day. I don't know what it is this year. But that's a ridiculous amount of music being put out. It's so oversaturated. Most of it's never going to get listened to. It's certainly not going to make any money. But when it comes to TikTokable music, I think, again, this is a really sad part of the industry, is that A&R isn't about scouting really incredible artists and then developing them. A&R is literally just scrolling TikTok to see what could be viral. But as soon as it's viral, that's it. You know, there's nothing going to really happen with that artist. They're just on to the next viral thing. So A&R isn't A&R anymore. And that's another upsetting thing about this industry.
Bringing in the identity into it. And I'm going to take the example of MIA, someone who has received a lot of praise and criticism for what she's done. But she ultimately, and correct me if I'm wrong, has brought like a bit of the Tamil heritage into the music scene that she represents, which I guess is a mix of like rap. And do you see what she has done as what I guess I call it a paradox of representation, but is there a way to win in doing this? Because obviously what she has done to bring the identity out there has still faced pushback.
Yeah.
So is there a future where representing by combining South Asian or any sort of identity with popular culture music is possible without facing criticism? And if so, what does that look like?
Well, it's tricky because the thing is, MIA, she's incredible, right? And she's not a young artist. You know, she's not by no means old, but I think she must be pushing about 50 now, I think, like roughly. Her music's incredible. Paper Planes, what a track. But, you know, I don't know enough about her pre that track, but she was with Diplo and Diplo produced a lot of her music. Would she have been given the space to have made it if she wasn't in a partnership in that sense? I think one of the things that I found, so I manage an artist called Saffron, who is British born Sri Lankan. Incredible woman on many, many levels. And it's funny when she's here. Well, so when she releases music here and she gets feedback, she's too Asian. Her music's too Asian for the Western side. If she plays it in Sri Lanka and talks to Sri Lankan family and stuff, it's too Western. Where does she fit?
Yeah.
You know, and there's space for everything. I mean, even Ed Sheeran with his Sapphires has brought out a track using using instruments outside of the Western world. So if there's space for him to do it, why isn't there space for actual people of heritage to do that?
This Ed Sheeran point, and we'll play the video so people can know what we're referring to.
The sounds are sounds that we don't use in Western pop music.
So there's different perspectives that people have taken on it, right? There's the obviously Ed is Ed. I actually love Ed Sheeran. His music is amazing. He's one of the only remaining singer-songwriters. There's Billie Eilish. There's people who actually write their own music and produce it and is genuinely talented. But then there's the other side of it where people are, based on what you're saying, it's kind of like a cultural aesthetic exploitation. And that's what I mean by that is aesthetically, he's showing the front end of, you know, I'm bringing something that hasn't been brought to the scene before. And maybe exploitation's a bit strong, but it's just the idea of, but you're bringing this to the front without the story and you're not actually the only person to bring it.
It's aesthetic is exactly what it's exactly right. It's like aesthetic borrowing without acknowledgement almost.
And so I guess the key question is, with something like that happening and someone as big as Ed, do you see that as opening the door to South Asian creators, or do you see it as taking the risk of actually erasing the underlying culture?
The latter, in my humble opinion. I think it's almost as if it's giving it a white saviour, almost. I realise that's going to be quite a controversial thing to say, but I think, and I've got notes on this because my artist Saffron was the one who drew my attention to the TikTok video, where he makes a claim that, and this is not verbatim because I can't remember it off the top of my head, but these are sounds. He's bringing sounds in to Western pop that have never been heard before, and he's talking about a sitar.
Yeah.
And the thing is, this is about his song Sapphire. The song doesn't actually have anything to do with sapphires,
Right.
but it's a symbol that it does tie deep with South Asian heritage. You know, it's kind of stripped us of the cultural and historical context of sapphires, and you know, the sapphires that were pillaged and put into the crown jewels and things like that. And it's kind of a missed opportunity to engage with like the historical trauma behind that and South Asian culture. And also it's, again, it's to sound really deep on this, but there's an element of systemic erasure going on with that. And I just think that it could have been played a lot better. They could have used it as a platform for support.
Right.
It's brilliant that someone as big as Ed Sheeran is using those sounds in his music. But are you using it in the white saviour aspect, or are you using it to highlight the incredible sounds that are worldwide? Yeah.
Yeah, that is.
Ed.
Yeah. Tell us.
Can you answer?
Yeah. But, you know, because, you see it's interesting perspective, because you see the likes of, you know, Diljit Singh and the track that he's done. And he's obviously quite well respected and known, and he's, you know, his concerts are massive. But then I get your point that it's still, Ed is the leading voice and talent in that. Yeah, so
use that voice. Use it for good.
For good, yeah.
Not just your bank account.
Yeah, more of the story. I wanna finish with some quick fire questions.
Okay, my ADHD brain's gonna love this.
And there can be one word, there could be one sentence.
Okay.
But it's because there's so many areas that I want to cover with you, and I think to get a good snapshot of this, and then I'd love to do another session where we expand on it. What's the most confusing or frustrating thing that you've been told about your identity?
That I don't look like a Smith.
Yeah.
I think that's really, the more I talk about it as I get older, the more I realise the effect that had on me. Because what does a Smith look like?
Yeah. Was that a big
I wonder if Will Smith's ever been told he doesn't look like a Smith. You know, like, yeah.
There's a lot of celebrities that need to answer to us in this.
Yes, yeah. I think that's what we need to do next. We need to get them in.
Yeah, and have a proper sit down.
Yeah.
And that played a big role in why you kept your name Smith,
I think it did, but I also have this real thing of, I was born Trina Smith. That's all I know how to be. Why would I ever change my name? Like, why would I, unless it felt right to me or I had a really good reason for doing it, why would I take someone else's name?
Yeah. Question.
I also gave my kids my surname as well because I did all the work. Well, it's double-barreled, but I was like, why would I Picasso doesn't paint a picture and put someone else's name on it, you know? So, yeah.
I like that. Question 2. What would it have meant to your younger self to see someone like you doing what you're doing now?
And that's a really, really tough question because I don't think I was aware at the time that I didn't see people like me. In fact, growing up, maybe the only person that I saw that was similar to me, and I don't even know if she was of Asian heritage. Oh God, I had Jenny Powell. Many, many years ago. You're probably too young.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But I don't think that I necessarily noticed that there weren't, but I was very much aware that the majority of people that you saw in spaces were white. So yeah, I don't know that it would have made a difference because I wouldn't have been aware. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I never felt like although I was sat between two cultures, I didn't not have my own identity, which is one thing I'm very grateful for. I knew exactly who I was, but that wasn't about the culture or anything like that. It was just, I knew who Trina was, and that whether that's the rebel who, the Asian side didn't like because I was anti a lot of the stuff that they believed in, or even the societal norms. I was me, and that I think that also comes down to why I wouldn't change my name as well.
I guess I'll flip the question then slightly to, if there is someone younger like you that has a similar, position or sense of belonging, of their own identity in them, where they are in between and they're pursuing something where they feel they can make a difference,
Mhm.
whether it's creatively, philanthropically. What do you say to them?
Don't play small.
Okay.
I think there's, take up space. And again, this is one of my artists that I work with, Saffron. She is the one who has said that to me. She's tired of playing small. She said to me, Trina, you have to as well. I know you're my manager and you want to be in the background. But at times now, don't play small, take up the space, make the space. And I think that is key for anyone is, make that seat at a table for you.
That's powerful. I wish we were going to end on that, but I have a couple more questions.
That's right.
I can clearly tell through this conversation that the feeling behind wanting to represent a culture that you probably started to explore a bit later. It's something, going back when you were speaking earlier, it reminded me of this analogy that someone gave, that our cultural inheritance is a bit like, it's something that we're born with there, but it doesn't actually do anything until we start to explore it. And he was giving the example of like something in an attic from before you were born. That was there for you, right? It's in the attic. Your parents have saved it there for you, but until you actually go in the attic and untake it, it's just cultural untapped and inheritance that sits there. So now that you've gone in the attic and taken that out, do you feel any sense of pressure in what you do to, I guess, be able to represent the space that you are trying to represent?
I don't feel pressure. And I think if I did feel pressure, I wouldn't do it.
Okay.
It's because I want to do it. Like everything in my journey has got me to this point, whether it's through the music or through just life in general and having kids and understanding my heritage more, taking an interest in it. There's no pressure. I just want to do it. I'm intrigued. I want to know more. I want to help people more. I mean, that can be within any culture. But I feel like I know so much more about other cultures than half of my own. And that's exciting for me to learn about it and, see where that takes me in terms of helping other South Asian artists.
Yeah, I love that. And it's, music really unites people. That's something that is well known, right? It can tap into people's something. I say something because I don't know scientifically what it is, but it taps into something inside that really brings out an emotion or a sense of belonging that other things can't do. But I think what I really love about this intersection between music and music production and representation and identity is that music also has the power to bring out traditions, unify communities, but also preserve culture and language.
Yeah.
That's why I really love what you're doing now, because through the likes of Saffron and the other people, something that I'm really passionate about is finding ways to preserve language, traditions, history, and knowledge. And I think through music is one of the most powerful ways. I just wish I could sing.
Anyone can sing now.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyone can sing.
Auto-tune does work wonders. And yeah, just to finish, what is, especially for people listening, whether they're regular listeners or because they've come through the South Asian Heritage Month, what is that one message that, either through your own story or something that you're really passionate about, that you want them to hear?
I think there's such a strength in understanding where you come from culturally. And I can understand why at points people might think that it can be a negative to embrace it, especially if you live in the Western world. And I think I would urge anyone to explore that, because you'd be surprised at how much stronger you are in character. And on every level, understanding where your parents have come from will help you understand a hell of a lot more about, whether it's generational trauma that you're having to deal with or just the way you grew up, and, understanding your parents more.
Yeah.
And I just think that's a beautiful thing. And all it can do is enrich whatever you're doing, especially if you're in music and you're writing music and you've done that work. What you can put into that art, that creativity, is so much more when you have that understanding. That's just my humble opinion, though.
No, well said. I didn't think you could finish on a stronger point than the one before, but you did.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Trina.
No, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning into that episode. If there's anything you did like from it, please leave a comment and let us know. I'll put Trina's details in the description so you can get in touch with her, as well as more about South Asian Heritage Month. You can hit the subscribe button there to find out when new episodes come out. But also, if you're not done listening to me, click this one here. I think you'll really like it.